What's going on? My name is Joe, and I practice talking on the internet. And I want to take some time to look at some ads. As the political circus is winding down, we're in the last, 3 days before the election goes through. There's a sort of final push from all different corners of the world to make some level of advocacy or position on voting. And I probably found one of the more interesting arguments. So what I want to do is I want to play those ads right now for you. And what I'll do, if you want to skip those ads and just get into the meat of the video and argument, be sure to check for timestamps underneath this video, because then we're going to have like a little bit of a commentary. Well, basically me just talking about how I feel about these things and in relation to the organization that is presenting this argument. So I'm going to run those two ads back to back. Altogether, it's about a minute, and then we'll get to it.
Your turn, honey.
In the one place in America where women still have a right to choose, you can vote any way you want, and no one will ever know.
Did you make the right choice?
Sure did, honey.
Remember, what happens in the booth stays in the booth. Vote Harris Walls. Vote Common Good is responsible for the contents of this ad.
Come on, boys. Let's make America great again. It's your turn, buddy.
Before you cast your vote in this election, think about how it'll impact the people you care about the most.
Daddy!
Remember, you can vote any way you want, and no one will ever know.
Do your patriotic duty.
You bet I did, brother.
What happens in the booth stays in the booth. Vote Harris Walls.
Paid for by Vote Common Good.
Vote Common Good is an evangelical Catholic organization, and their, I guess, goal, you could say, is to essentially shift over evangelical and Catholic voters who tend to have a propensity to go to Donald Trump to vote for broadly Democrats and president, or potential president, in this case, Kamala Harris. A really interesting strategy. Good luck. But yeah, so here's a little blurb about them. Many evangelical and Catholic voters have been taught that to be faithful, they must vote for Republican candidates regardless of the candidate's character or policy positions. In recent years, a significant percentage of voters have watched the Republican Party disregard a commitment to the common good as they support political and social movements rooted in white nationalism, a misguided approach to America first, and practices of division. This is highlighted by the treacherous insurrection and attack on Congress on January 6th, 2021, and the continued spreading of the big lie about the 2020 presidential election outcome. Many evangelical and Christian voters are experiencing a reckoning of their faith and feel called to oppose policies and approaches of division, racism, selfishness, cruelty, and exclusion. We'll get to that later. For many of these voters, their primary commitment is not to switch parties. It is to be faithful to their beliefs and convictions to make the common good their voting criteria. The behavior of many elected Republicans makes it difficult for them to continue and support them. They are open to disassociating with Republicans in pursuit of the common good. In 2020 election, we saw a 5 to 10% shift in evangelical voters away from Republicans, and are confident there is an additional 5 to 10% who are looking for an exit ramp for supporting Republicans who sacrifice the common good. We work to help these voters see and take the exit. We engage these voters through direct contact with voters, we engage these votes through direct contact with voters, changing the national narrative around religion and politics via media, and training candidates on effectively connecting with these voters. They later on the website, they have like a list of different things, but this is the part that this is going to be kind of interesting. But yeah, so we believe new religious imagination will change America. This transformation will never happen without sustained effort. Vote common good and its allies can turn impossible into inevitable. What we mean by common good. When the Hebrew scriptures say to treat the alien and refugee as you would want to be treated because God desires compassion for the widow, the orphan, the poor, and the vulnerable, we call people to seek the common good. More about that later. When Jesus says to love your neighbor as yourself, and when Paul says not to seek your own interests only, but also the interests of others, and when John and James say that no one can say that they love God or have faith in God if they fail to demonstrate love for thy neighbor, they call people to seek the common good. When the Quran says that no one is a believer until they desire for their brother or sister that they desire for themselves, and teaches that God made us different so that we would seek to understand and know one another, the Quran calls humanity to seek the common good. When great leaders in Sikhism say to value others as you value yourself, and to avoid creating enmity with anyone because God is within everyone. When Taoists say to regard your neighbor's gain or loss as your own, when Buddhists and Hindus say do not hurt others in ways you would find hurtful, and when the secular humanists advocate the principle of reciprocity, they call humanity to seek the common good. This means that good-hearted Christians, Jews, Muslims, and people of all traditions cannot simply vote for what is best for themselves as individuals, or even what is best for their religion, party, race, or nation alone, but must be concerned for the common good. Or, to put it differently, selfish people of every religion and tradition vote for self-interest or partisan interest alone, but good people of every religion vote for the common good. And I'm going to make this part quick because I want to make it to the meat of the actual video. There's a genocide in Gaza. So why are you peddling people to vote for Democrats? If you're looking for a common good, then the only answer would be to vote for neither. But that's my take on that. So they're full of shit. So it's like, there's a genocide in Gaza at the backdrop of that, and that genocide in Gaza is engaging with everything else. It's not in a vacuum within self-interest. So if you are somebody of faith and you're telling people that Republicans are, and we're moving evangelicals and Christians away from Republicans, and then the solution to that is to go Democrats, you're a hypocrite. Both support Gaza, both support a genocide, both support the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. So shut the fuck up. Now that that's out of the way, we can have a little bit of a dialogue about those ads. I think it's really interesting how when you look at political ads, what they're trying to, the things that they're not saying, and the actions that they are telling you to do, that are not overtly obvious when you first watch the video. What they're basically saying in both of these examples is that in the context of a male, and then we can say in the context of a white male, because not a lot of white folks in either of those ads. That's a choice. That's a choice you make. There's a bunch of reasons why you make that choice, but I found that choice quite interesting. Because I guess means that they know their demographic very well. But I digress. You're basically suggesting that if you are a woman, you should lie to your spouse. If you are a man, you should lie to your friends. all for the deeper goal of voting Democrats. And that's not how that works or how that should work. Your life is not divorced from your politic. So what's happening for some people, because I think that the two types of voters they represented are in a minority, is that you as a person of faith or a person of a particular political leaning, the only way you can actualize yourself against these things, if they're in contradiction with your life around you, is to essentially lie to everybody around you. I think that's just kind of bullshit. In short, because I don't know if that was clear, I'll make this a little bit more clear, is that I don't believe that there is a large demographic of men who are going to withhold their vote truth to their friend circles just for the sake of maintaining the friendship. I think that's actually dangerous. I also don't believe that there is a large percentage of women who are lying to their spouse and their other social circles that they're actually voting for Democrats when they're all voting for Republicans. I think when you enter into these relationships, whether it be the simpler one that was narrated by George Clooney of all people, which is friend circles, I think what creates cohesion in your friend circles is some level of ideological cohesion. I don't think it's possible for you to actually be friends with those who are ideological opposed to you. And that's for, in the most part, liberals. I think those, once you go beyond, I think within liberal framing and liberal frameworks, I don't think that's possible. I think there's too much inconsistency. That's going to cause friction forever. Now, I would hold a different position beyond liberalism, where I think that, like, within, we'll broadly say, define left as a disaggregated group of ideologies, all of whom have a connected anti-capitalist, anti-colonial, and anti-white supremacist stance. So, like, grouping all those things together. And that's what creates the consistency. Like, consistency for me in the left is a consistent call against white supremacy, a consistent call against capitalism, and a consistent call against colonialism. And then that's what confines the left. These motherfuckers argue all the time. So I think you're more likely to find leftists who have friends that are anarchists, friends that are socialists, friends that are Marxists, and then they all argue with each other and stuff like that, because I think discourse and debate is fostered a little bit better within those ideological groups of what I define as the left, where I think liberalism does not allow for that level of discourse and debate. So you're not going to find the liberal who marries a conservative. You're not going to find the liberal that's in a friend circle with a bunch of conservatives. I think that when the rubber hits the road in those like deep intimacies of friend circles, those things are going to be friction within the relationship. I hold the same position a little bit for the right as well. But the right has, to their benefit or lack thereof, they do have a level of openness to people generally. So they just won't talk about politics. So that makes it kind of a little bit nefarious for the liberal, right? Because the liberal doesn't want this kind of nothing to really rock the boat. So they will sort of structure their lives to be a constant level of vetting and interrogation. For conservatives, they don't give a shit. Like, they'll gladly be friends with and open the door for liberals, leftists, what have you. But in reality, like, their political actions are that. They'll just do the political action and not care about how you feel about said political action. That's why I think it makes conservatives a little nefarious. For what we ought to do with stuff like this, like what we ought to do with the question of what happens if my spouse has different political ideology or my friends have political ideology than my own. I think in most cases, we'll do with the friends because I think that's a little bit easier thing to look at. I think that you leave. I think you foster better friend circles. I think what happens for some people when they are within we'll say like a heap of conservatives is that they start building survival strategies just so that they can hang within the conversations and social circles. And I don't think that being dishonest as you engage with those social circles is a sustainable measure. I think that's always going to be a level of friction. It's always going to be a level of conflict. And you're basically saying, I'm going to allow my otherization to happen in this friend circle over and over and over and don different presentation and survival strategies. And I will just accept this. Like, no, like it's going to constantly erode at you to the point where you're basically going to be, in a sense, in terms of just means of survival, adopting the beliefs and the ideas of them, where then you're just indistinguishable from them. So it's like, yeah, like the liberal who's friends with conservatives will just end up at J6. Like that's just kind of how it is. For marriage, I hold this a little bit different because I think that I don't believe in this divorce take of like, oh, if your spouse is a conservative and you're a liberal or something, just leave them. I think you have to recognize that like those people are you don't have to don't worry about those people, right? Like the problem's already presented itself. We see what the problem is. So for those who are not in those type of relationships, I think it's our duty to vet our partners politically. I think it's our duty to vet our partners on all the things that make up our ethical life and make up the world around us, right? So like something that I've always held is for Black Americans in particular, if you are going to enter into relationships not only with Black people, but other like non-Black people, you should probably have conversations about race. You should especially have conversations about race. You should have conversations about inequality. You should have conversations about class, all these things. You want to have a really solid understanding of how your spouse feels about these different political issues, right? I think a problem is for a lot of people, they don't really want to engage with that. They don't want to engage with the political discourse and debate that would exist with your partner. And our social institutions do a really good job at discouraging that discourse and debate. But I think you have to vet your partners. Because the last thing you want is to like find the FBI at your doorsteps and then they arrest your spouse and you're like, what happened? Like, oh yeah, he was there on J6 and like, I didn't know, I couldn't believe this would happen. Like, yeah, you have to, one part of your cultural ignorance as a family unit is that you are not, being open about your political ideology to the person that you marry, which is crazy. And again, I think these people are within the minority. I think most people have some level of political cohesion when they enter into marriage. I think that is a natural part of the marriage process. But when you are in the relationship stage with somebody and you're looking to go beyond that, to be a fiance, to be a husband or wife or whatever that might be for you, I think you do have to look into interrogation with your partners to understand where they stand on certain things. As far as this poo-poo organization is concerned, there's a genocide in Gaza, so any type of supportive Democrats you say is hypocritical and contradictory, so you're going to have to engage with that contradiction as you deal with it. And they also use Corinthians 1, chapter 13 as their normative ground. And even within their own normative ground, the question of Gaza is not answered. So it's just like, yeah, your organization is contradictory, so we can just look at it and discard it right on its face. Especially considering that some of the people that are within their candidates are over Zionists. So these are people who support the expansion of Israel and their proxies. So I can't really take you seriously if you think, oh, the Republican Party is going towards what do they describe it as? The approaches of division, racism, selfishness, cruelty, and exclusion. And if you don't think the Israeli government is doing that right now, and you're supporting Democrats who support Israel, I don't know what to tell you. You're just kind of full of shit. So, and I'm not like being nice anymore on these people. So, yeah, this organization is poo-poo, throw in the garbage. Their ad is kind of cool, but I thought it was kind of an interesting thing to take a little bit of time to talk about. Obviously, I'll be in the comments if you want to talk about this. And if you want to like have a longer conversation, as usual, you can send me a message on all the dooblies, whether it be TikTok, Twitter, what have you. I'm more than happy to chop shop about it in more longer detail. All right, now, I'll catch you soon.